making okra Creole. Now this is something that you could do when you have fresh produce and when you don't. I've got 6 slices of bacon and I've used a trick that my mom used. I was never not quite sure whether she did this. She always cut the bacon slices in half. So I started with 3 slices, cut each one in half, and now I have 6. And I was never quite sure if she did that because it didn't fit in the pan, or if because then she could say to each of us, you can have 1 and we don't eat half as much. But it works. All right, I've got 1 tablespoon, that's all I'm retaining of the bacon fat in here. And I'm going to turn this down just a smidgen. I'm going to add half a cup of onion that's chopped and half a cup of green bell pepper. Now you could spice this up if you don't like the milder version of Okra Creole. You could spice this up by adding a different kind of pepper to it, so that it gets more zing to it. Now I'm going to eventually get all that bacon bits and that have been cooked on the pan. We're going to cook it long enough that those are going to come back out and add more flavor to it. But remember, I've only retained about 1 tablespoon of the bacon fat. We started with 3 bacon slices. We cooked them off. They're going to cool down. Then later on we're going to crumble them up and sprinkle them on the top. But right now we're just set those aside and we're using this. Now if you wanted to improve the nutrition profile of this, you could either use a turkey bacon and still use the fat, or you could switch over and brown the regular bacon until it gets nice and ready to crumble, and then take out all the bacon fat and substitute in an olive oil or a canola oil so that you change the nutrition profile there. So I'm going to go ahead and use just a little bit of bacon fat, not the 2 tablespoons that it originally called for, but do make sure that you at least take some of it out if you do use regular bacon. We're going to let this cook for about 3 minutes, or you would in order to soften this up a bit. We want to make sure that the peppers and the onions begin to get a little bit more translucent, and then we'll assume that that's gone by, and we'll add 1 large clove of garlic. Now this again is taste preferences. I used a really large clove of garlic here because I really like the flavor of it. But I want to add it towards the end, and I don't want to cook it very long, maybe 30 seconds to a minute. You don't want it to get burned in any way. And once you get that in there, we're ready to start adding some of the other ingredients. Now to make sure that that doesn't burn, I'm going to go ahead and add the water first. This is about a half a cup of water. And you may need to add a little bit more. We're going to let this simmer for around 20 minutes over the period of the course of making it. So if you need to add a little bit more, go ahead and do that. I've also got close to 2 cups. Now this could be a can of diced or chopped or whole tomatoes that you've cut up, or a pint of tomatoes that you did yourself. You could also use fresh tomatoes. If you're using fresh tomatoes, make sure that you chop them up and retain the liquid that came with them. I'd probably also peel them because they're going to cook down and the peel is going to kind of come off. So blanch them a little bit and make sure that you use all the liquid that came with it. And a couple of other ingredients are going in here. I've got a cup of corn. Now again, this could be fresh. If you've got it in season, just cut it off the cob. You could use frozen, or you could use canned. If you're using canned, you're going to have the liquid there and there are going to be some nutrients in it, and since we used half a cup of water anyway, you might as well save that liquid and use it as the water ingredient that we called for. Now a couple of other seasonings are going in here, about 1/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper and a teaspoon of Cajun seasoning. Now again, for those of you who really like things nice and spicy, and we have a guest, so we'll eliminate him from the process before he gets cooked in here too far. You may want to add some additional sauce, hot sauce to this, or you could just pass the hot sauce later on. And now let's get this last favorite ingredient in here. Again, this could be seasonal. If you have it fresh, just go ahead and wash it well and cut it into chunks or into slices. This has actually been frozen. You could either add it completely frozen. This one's defrosted a little bit, and that's fine too. The issue you'll have is if it's still frozen, same with the corn, is that it's going to take a little bit longer for it to come up to heat. And so the cooking times on it, you may have to adjust just a little bit. We're going to bring this up at a high heat and let it simmer fairly steady for about 5 minutes to get some of those flavors blended, and stir it every now and again. And then we're going to cover it, lower the heat to just a simmer, and let it simmer for about 15. Okay, you can see this has been cooking nicely. It's cooked down, but we still have most of the color left on it. So it's still going to work really well. Basically, this is done now. Now this you can serve as is, or you can let it while it's still hot, or you can cool it down. I'm going to serve it over about a half a cup of cooked brown rice and get plenty of that juice for that rice to soak up. This is really a nice dish, and as I said, it is multi-seasonal since you can use canned and frozen products with it. And then for that last little bit, you're going to sprinkle that little bit of bacon that you've saved for it right over the top, crumble that over the top. It is really great on a cool night, on a cold night, or on a hot night. It works on any of those seasons. I hope you'll give this one a try. It's Okra Creole. For Oklahoma Gardening, I'm Barbara Brown.